Hello, welcome back. Big thank you to our sponsors up on the screen, In Daily, Refuel, Stack, Woolman's Lawyers, AAP as well. Let's get on to our next speakers. We've got two for you this time. Andres Versteeg. Yes. We had this conversation before and I've immediately forgot. You know when someone says something and you immediately forget? Andres Versteeg from Further Insight and Fabienne from Adelaide Central Market. Andres heads up Further Insight, a leading market research, optimization and customer experience consultancy based in Adelaide. He's passionate about using data to help organisations understand their target audience better and, as a result, become better at meeting their needs. As a qualified professional researcher accredited by the Research Society Australia, Andres works with a diverse range of clients from global corporations to small local businesses, analysing and developing effective insights to support their goals. Originally from the Netherlands, he has called Australia home for over 15 years and enjoys riding his bike and being out in nature when he finds some rare spare time. Fabienne started her journey with the authority in 2021 as commercial manager before taking the reins as general manager in August 2023. Fabienne and the management team are custodians of Adelaide's iconic Central Market, responsible for all aspects of centre management, including customer experience, marketing, property management and leasing operations. Fabienne is passionate about this well-loved community asset and ensuring a thriving business environment for over 70 traders. Over the next 18 months, Fabienne will continue to position the Adelaide Central Market as a world-leading food and produce market, including a once-in-a-generation expansion which will double the size of the market with over 125 food businesses, servicing over 10 million customers every year. Please welcome them to the stage.
Thank you very much. That was a great introduction. Ed, was it? Yes. Thank you guys for your time today, for letting me speak about or share a great story about what we have been doing with the Adelaide Central Market team. So Fabienne will come up a little bit later when we're talking about specific work that we have done for them. But I'll just start with a little bit of an introduction. But before I do the introduction, when I was asked to speak at this conference, I was very excited to share the story. But the first thing I thought was, okay, let's have a look at the program. Who else is going to be speaking? And then I saw that they had the brilliant Jeremy right before me, so I was going to speak right after him. So this guy who seems to be like a philosopher and runs his own business in video production and then turns into some kind of astronaut. And I thought, wow, that's going to be hard to go after. And then I realized that in the other session, there's going to be a lawyer speaking about social media. And then after me, there's going to be a dentist. So that really made me think about my career choices and think like, have I made the right choice? So anyway, I'm still really enjoying what I'm doing and really grateful for the opportunity to be here and talk to you about what we've done with the Central Market. So just a quick introduction. So Fabienne, so she's right over there. She's the general manager of the Central Market. And I run Further Insight. So Further Insight does market research, marketing mix modeling, and customer experience work. And we do that for all kinds of organizations in Adelaide, in Australia, and outside of Australia. This story is starting, we're starting kind of small. So my business, Further Insight, in 2021 was kind of small. The Adelaide Central Market was one of my first clients, actually probably the founding client of the business. And the Adelaide Central Market in itself, you may think of it as a massive space, a massive organization, a massive community. But the team that runs that Central Market is actually also quite small. So just putting yourself in their shoes, imagine that you are running a community with a tiny team, and you're competing against massive businesses like Woolies and Coles, who have incredible data and tech capabilities and incredible customer insights programs. And at the same time, you work in a very complex environment, so you're trying to balance the needs of a target audience which is very diverse. So the target audience of the central market includes obviously Adelaideans, but also includes regional South Australians who just come to the market, from time to time, and love to spend a little bit of time there, love to shop around and get that market feel, and also love to have a coffee there. But then also you have tourists. So there's so many people in Adelaide who love bringing their friends and family when they come from interstate or international, and love to bring them to the market because it's a special kind of outing. And it's also a very special offer that we have that is something you don't really find in Australia or even outside of Australia. What the team at the same time manages is the 72 traders, which is about to increase that number of traders. So the traders are all the stall holders, all the shop owners that form part of the market. And they all obviously have varying needs. So you may be aware that Higgs is part of the central market, but you might also be aware that there's like tiny shops. There's fruit and veg stalls that have been there for 20, 30 years, and the whole family works in that same stall, and they work there day in, day out on weekends and during the week, and try to make a living for their family. So they're very different types of businesses with very different types of needs, also serving very different types of customers. Because some of them, the fruit and veg stalls, for example, they open early in the morning, and that's when people are after their fruit and veg. But then there's also cafes and places that offer dinner. And so the market has to kind of accommodate for all of those different types of businesses and all of those different types of customer needs. Then at the same time, the organization has to work with the building owner. So they don't actually own the building. They are part of the building, but they have to work with the building owner, which is the city council, to make, I guess, the organization work. They have to work with a separate, again, parking building owner, which is also not part of the organization. So they can't really make any decisions around how all of that is designed or how all of that works. They can't really set parking rates, for example. So they have to work with external parties to kind of make those situations work for everyone involved. Then there's obviously the media. I guess being an icon in Adelaide, everyone, including the media, is very interested in decisions that are being made about what is happening at the market and what's on offer, and any other stakeholders. So, as you can imagine, that's quite a complex world that they run their organization in. So how we started, so this is 2021, when the market reached out to me. So the Adelaide Central Market, and I think I mentioned it before as well, it's managed by the Authority, which is a small team of people who manage things like facilities, marketing and communications, and just the running of the organization. They're a very passionate but small team. As I said already, decisions are quite difficult and complex. Information on what is actually happening in the market is quite scarce. So they, because they have about 70 tenants, each of them run their own business. They don't have any view on sales data, visitation numbers. The visitation numbers they get from like sensors that they have to install. They don't know anything about turnover of those businesses, which business is doing well and which business is doing not so well, when visitors are coming to the market, what they are looking for. I already talked about the target audience being quite big and quite diverse. So it's actually quite complex. Like, how do you make that work? The feedback from customers that they were receiving at that time was quite rare. So they would only get like the extremes. So if someone was complaining, they would run up to the market's, the authority's office and complain about, this is what happened, but that's about the feedback that they were getting. There's no satisfaction numbers around any of the elements of the market. And then at that time, they were also becoming aware of the plans of the market expansion. So This is another thing that the market is not necessarily managing on their own. So the building owner decides to change the building, decides to build a hotel on top of the market and apartments, and also decides that there's going to be 2 layers in that building that are made available to the market. So there are obviously in that project, there are a lot of other stakeholders that they need to consider, and they are just one of the stakeholders as a tenant, if you will, of that building. So market expansion is great, but how are we going to make this work? How are we going to make sure that everyone's happy, that we meet all of our customers' needs and all of our stakeholders' needs? So they reached out to us in the recovery from COVID. Obviously, the market was quite impacted during COVID as well. Not a lot of people would come into the market, especially not people who had higher risk of getting COVID. So a lot of their older customers were nervous about getting back into the market. So they reached out and said, hey, do you have some reports about customers or consumers and what they do in terms of grocery shopping? Now, we have reports, but we don't have reports that are that specific. So I said, okay, let's sit down and let's talk about what you are, the problems that you are dealing with. Let's see how we can meet those needs. The journey that we went on together was to transform an organization that knew very little about their customers to an organization that probably has done more research than most of the organizations here in this room. And you might not believe that, but wait until I show you all the stuff that we have done. But before I get into that, do we actually need market research? I mean, I'm a market researcher, but you guys, probably most of you are not. Do you actually need to do market research? Do you not know enough about your customers? So you might have heard of the quote that I've put up here from Steve Jobs. So Steve Jobs talks about, you don't ask people what they want, because they won't know what they want. They won't be able to tell you what they want. So this quote is often used when people talk about market research, and people say, well, I don't really need it. Like I can think about my customers and think about what they want, and then do those kind of things. Now, what market research can do for you or your organization, you can go from doing risky launches where you're not sure whether your product or your service or your campaign is going to meet customer needs to being confident about your implementation. Going from measuring behavior, so measuring outcomes, you're tracking your sales, to understanding your customers, understanding why they actually purchase with you, why they prefer you over a competitor. You can go from reacting to competitors to actually being aware of what your competitors are doing and identifying gaps in the market based on what you are doing and what your customers are doing and where that gap is in serving customer needs. You can go from measuring your ads to measuring your marketing holistically at an overall, so including both online and offline marketing, and including things that are less easy to measure. You can go from gut feel or anecdotes business decisions to defendable business decisions. And then lastly, what I'll say about Apple and Steve Jobs and market research. So what actually was, some of you may remember the Apple versus Samsung trial in 2013. During that trial, Apple actually had to make data available on their research and their customers, and what became clear from that trial was that they actually do a lot of research about to better understand their customers, better understand their needs, better understand how their products compare to competitive products, what features are most used, and what their customer demographics are, and to help them grow as a business. All right, so the customer insights program that I just mentioned before, and how that developed over time. So this is the kind of research that we did for the central market over the years. So we started in 2021 with the base level. We started with journey mapping, market trends analysis, and customer experience tracking. Now, I'm going to talk about these kind of things in a little bit, but the way I've classified, I guess, or qualified the types of research that we did is in 3 layers. So design and execution. So that kind of research helps organizations design their strategy and execute it. It helps you make choices in terms of, okay, what do our customers want and how do we deliver on those needs? So in that, and that was really important for the market because we basically started from scratch. So we started with the journey mapping and market trends analysis. Later, more recently, we've looked at open hours potential. So that's asking customers about, if we would open the market at these kind of hours, would you be likely to visit? And we also did traders engagement. So we talked to the traders at the market about opening hours and to better understand what they wanted. And then most recently, an expansion survey. So asking customers when the expansion is going to happen, what would you like to see at that new central market? Now, the next level down from that is the shorter term effectiveness technical improvement. So that's research that we do not so much to inform long-term strategy, but to inform short-term action. So in 2023, what we did for them was online store satisfaction and construction impact. So the construction impact research was actually asking visitors face-to-face during their visit, have you noticed the construction work going on at the market and how has it impacted your visit? And then the last layer, which is what we use for long-term reporting and strategic improvement. So that's basically measuring on an ongoing basis, how are we doing? Are we reaching our strategic goals? Now later in the slides, I'll have something like this, which is filled out with examples of things that you could do in your organization, and it has a lot more detail as well. So CX tracking, basically customer experience tracking, it's like customer satisfaction tracking. So we ask visitors, when did you last visit? How was your visit? What did you like? What did you dislike? Just to get a feel of how the market's performing. I'll talk about the case studies now. So what we've done, some of the projects that we've done will provide you a little bit more detail. So the first thing that we started with doing for the market was journey mapping. Now journey mapping is when you talk to customers and you sit down with them and you talk about the journey that they go through as they purchase your product. And so what we did in this research is we wanted to understand what are the needs of customers, how do they interact with the market, what are the touch points, and what are the pain points, and what are the delights. And it's just basically you start at a base level of understanding of your customers and their needs. Now, the diagram that I've put up in front of you is one of the results, I guess, that we included in the report, and that just shows that journey. I know it's a little bit hard to read, and I'll just talk you through some of the key elements in that. So what we put in that journey map is basically in the columns the steps that people go through. So customers go from research discovery, in which they think about going to the market, to traveling to the market, then in-market experience logistics, so that's trying to find your way in the market, trying to find a park before that, then an in-market purchase, travel back home, and then your post-visit experience. And so for all of those steps in the customer journey, what we talked to customers about was, what are the actions that you take? What are the thoughts that you are having? What are the feelings that you have during that step? So is there a feeling of frustration or excitement, or just a general feeling good? What are the touch points that you're using? Are you using the website to look up information, or are you using Google Maps to get directions? In the market, are you using signs or maps? And then the next layer that we talked about was the expectation. So in that moment, in that step, what are you expecting to get? So based on all of your past experiences, what kind of service level do you think the market should deliver to you? Then we have the nice line with the emojis. That's basically a representation of how people were feeling during that journey. Under that, we've got the pain points. So where were people struggling? And what we find, I'll talk about it on the next slide as well, but what we found mostly is parking was a pain. It was sometimes too busy. Some people experienced unfriendly staff or being or having problems with finding their car again after going to the market. And then we also talked about the delights. So what were the exciting things? Now, some of the recommendations, so we made a lot of recommendations based on that research, but some of the key recommendations that we made on the back of that research was to improve the navigation in the parking building. So people were talking about parking a lot, and not a lot of people come to the market every day, right? So if you come once every week or once every month, and you have to go into a parking building that is a struggle, you're not going to learn your way because you don't visit often enough. So a lot of people would actually experience struggles there. And then at the same time, we also realized, based on the research, that it was a problem to navigate that building. They talked to us about extended opening hours. So the market has differing opening hours. It's not. It's only open one night a week, and it's only open from 7 till 3 on a Saturday. So for most people, that's not. It means that it's hard to get to the market if you work during business hours. We also got comments about the presentation of stalls and the market itself. So we got comments around the market looking a bit daggy maybe, and sometimes a little bit unclean. And so those were the key recommendations that we made. Now, and I'll hand to Fabienne. I think it's. Oh. Give us a second. So what Fabienne's going to talk about is just the, I guess, the market side of the story. So what did they do with the research? How was it received, and what was useful about it?
We're on now? Yes, we are. Great. So before I get into the case study, just wanted to let you know that, as Andrew said, we've been working together for 5 years now. And it's not only been very beneficial for the market to be working with Andrews and Further Insight, but it's also been very enjoyable. Despite the fact that French are much better at soccer than Dutch. Right, Andres? Okay, so seriously, my main learnings when it comes to data and research is that you have to surround yourself with people that you can trust, because at some point in the process, the data is going to say something that is not aligned with your perceived or conceived ideas or gut feel. So yeah, that's what we got with Andres, that trust. Okay, back to the case study now. So we got this journey mapping data, and it was very well received by our stakeholders. Our stakeholders, we've talked about it, is complex. We have our council, which, elected members. We have our board, and we also have a complex bunch of passionate traders. And so for them, this information was really clear and easy to understand, easy to digest, and constructive. So we could actually go back to our traders group and say, okay, this is information, these are the actions we are recommending. It was great. It was the first time we were able to visualise the customer journey and understand pre and post experience as well, not just what happens in the market. And it was also the first time that we had numbers that talked about emotions and feelings. And, we had some good surprises, things we knew, but also good surprises like hearing, for example, that customers take pride in their experience at the market and come back with a bag of goodies and, are proud of their experience and proud of their being able to select their produce or talk to the traders, etc. So this is when we started to be more data-driven when making decisions about customer experience.
Thank you, Fabienne. Thank you for that. Although it's great to hear you talk about the trust, but then when you say that about the Dutch soccer team, I'm like, well, in front of this audience as well. I don't know, we need to
Be
talk
neutral.
about this, I think. It's, yeah. All right, so the second case study, customer experience tracker. So this is what we put in place to get an ongoing measurement of the experience at the market. What we wanted to do is wanted to understand the day-to-day experiences, how the market was delivering on strategic outcomes. We wanted to measure the online and the offline experience of the market. So you may not know, but the market has an online store. And so we wanted to measure the experience of both. We wanted to measure the impact of the construction work that's going on at the market. And we wanted to understand the effect of the marketing campaign. So that's a lot to measure. And we built that all into a customer experience tracker. It's an online survey. We recruit samples through a number of sources, including the market's email database, including the market's social media pages. And what we do is we have ongoing data collection. So sometimes these kind of trackers, when you do a brand health tracker or a customer experience tracker, you might do that once a year. What we wanted to do is wanted to have ongoing measurements so we could see those changes over time. We have fixed questions, so questions that we ask consistently so we can track performance. And we have adjustable sections so we can go in and out with questions that that the organization wanted to ask just from time to time. We incentivize the data collection to make sure we get a representative audience, and then we have regular reporting with monthly and quarterly results. Now, what you see in the charts here is basically a visualization of how that data changed and also how we can then use that data to understand that performance over time. So what we found in that, so this customer experience tracker has been running for the last 5 years. So we have a massive sample size. So we have a lot of insights over time of how the experience changed for the market. So we saw a real interesting change in visitation patterns since COVID, slowly, bit by bit, month by month, visitors, the loyal visitors returning to the market. We saw impact of parking changes during the renovation, so the prices changed, availability of parking changed, and we saw that come out of the research as well. We saw impact of cost of living, impact of renovation work, and improved or decreased customer satisfaction as a result of things that change at the market.
So this customer experience tracker has really been an essential tool for the market, for our management team. We refer to it all the time. In fact, I'm a bit old school and I've got a folder on my desk and constantly I'm going back to it. We use it to track activities. You know, if we say, for example, the producer in residence, we know that on social media it works well, but what does it mean from an experience point of view? We were able to see that it worked really well and therefore to make financial decisions around it, to invest more into it. We've been tracking performance and using information to build our strategic plan and also to report to it. And testing also ideas around different new ways of doing things.
And then the last case study is the visitor profile research. So we knew, and we only started undertaking this research more recently. So we had, as you've seen in the program, we had done a lot of research already. The one thing that we were missing, so we knew a lot about the customers, the one thing we were missing is what about the experience in the market itself? So what if we survey people in the market? Because a lot of the research that we did was after the fact, like a week after visitation, or people like awareness research where you interview the broader population rather than people who visit. And so we wanted to do research in the market to actually understand what are the profiles of the visitors. So what proportion of people are actually tourists? What proportion are city workers, for example? What you see here is some of the results, so we blanked out quite a few of the results because obviously all of this is confidential information to the market. But we measured things like visitation goals, what are the top spend categories, what did they actually spend, how much time did they spend at the market, etc. And so we did it through face-to-face interviewing. It was a short survey to not interrupt people's visitation too much. So key things that we found was that tourists and city workers were more likely to come for food and drinks rather than any other of the segments. We started to get a much better understanding of which days of the week and which time of the week were people actually spending on in which categories. And that actually both fruit and vegetable and cafes and eateries are very popular categories, whereas often that's the market was trying to find a balance between the two, and now they know they actually need to keep doing that. They can't move in one way or the other.
And all of that really gave us a better understanding of our customers. We continue to learn from that, and also, importantly, how we spend our marketing dollars. Next slide, if we go there. This is all really about what we gain from doing research. First of all is we remain accountable to our stakeholders, and we keep learning, right? So Andrew's mentioned the market expansion. We've been doing a lot of work in trying to find out what it was going to look like. It's a really exciting project, obviously. We've been looking at our core qualities and really trying to understand, how we maximise the opportunities of the future while retaining the soul and the essence of the market that everybody loves. So research has really helped with that, understanding what our retail mix should be, and understanding, what offers we would like, but also being able to attract potential tenants by saying, this is what we hear that people want, this is what how many people we know are coming, etc. So on top of that, we've had lots of quick wins over the years, and that included seating. We heard that customers didn't have enough time to dwell in the precinct and wanted to sit and stay and eat. So that was a really easy fix. We improved our signage in the car park, in the market. We've upgraded our bathroom. We've really worked hard on the presentations of the stalls. Having this data was helpful to traders. It wasn't, the management team telling the traders what to do. It was the customers telling the traders what to do. And all of that obviously has been and continues to be measured with our satisfaction rate. We also knew that we needed affordable offers and a wide range of fruit and vegetable choice. So that has stayed a focus of ours and is informed by data. And on that note, the market is absolutely a place to find, fancy goodies, but it's also absolutely the place to find a really affordable shop. So come and shop. And yes, it's been really a great success for us.
All right, and then lastly, I'll rush through this because I'm getting nervous looks from the back, about how you could do more in this space. So what you could do in terms of customer insights. What you might already be doing is talking to your customers directly, collecting customer feedback, and collecting purchase users data. And those kind of things already give you a really good understanding of your customers. Now, there are things that you could do next. I'm not going to go through this. You don't need to take a photo because I'll have a QR code that you can use to download this. I've got a whole list of questions that you could ask your customers. Now, the reason I'm putting this up here is that you can actually do customer research. It's not difficult. The only thing you need to do is reach out to a customer, sit down with them, and ask questions like these. And do it with one customer, then do it with another one, and then you can start seeing the value of doing this kind of work, and you can start also building value within the organization and for them to see the value of talking to customers and getting customer insights. Now, the last thing I wanted to share is a marketing measurement framework. So that has that same kind of levels that I was just talking about before, the way that we designed the program for the market. So looking at design and execution, short-term effectiveness and technical improvement, and long-term reporting and strategic improvement. Now, this is very hard for you to read. So again, you can download this with the QR code and get your own copy and create your own copy of what you think is the best way to measure your marketing effectiveness. And that's the QR code.
Thank you, Andreas and Fabienne. Fantastic. Got a couple of questions for you, sorry. What are some easy ways for any organisation to get support for undertaking customer research? And maybe if you haven't even considered it before, what's some easy ins?
Yeah, so I think I probably talked about this just then, but it's about starting small. So just starting talking to 1 or 2 customers and taking your first little step in the same way that the market took their first steps in understanding base level of customer needs. And once you've done that first little step, you can start building on it, because you share those kind of results with your stakeholders and you let them see, okay, actually if we do things differently, customers will respond better to what we are doing, and we'll get better results. And I think that is the easiest thing you can do.
How do you cut through the customer exhaustion of constantly being asked via surveys and focus groups to give feedback on things?
Amazing question. Yes, we get surveyed a lot. And that is one of the things that we did when we designed, for example, the customer experience tracker. So people don't want to get a survey every time they go to the market. And what we are doing, we are targeting the whole database of the central market for this research. We are doing ongoing data collection, so basically monthly invites to that survey. But what we do is we split that database in 12 pieces. So every month, a different part of the database gets a survey, right? So you'll get an invite to a survey from the market only once a year. So that really helps. I think the other thing that you can do is actually show value, because we all know those kind of surveys, the NPS type of survey, for example, that you get after a visitation to your car dealer. And you're like, well, here's another one, and I don't see any change. And I think it's really important. Research is part of a conversation that you are having with your target audience. If you don't do anything with the researcher, don't communicate with them, they don't see any difference in what you are doing, then they are talking to you, but you're not listening. So that part of the conversation is really important, is feeding it back to your client. Yes, we've heard you, this is what you said, this is what we have done, and then prove it, right? They need to see that improvement. So I think those are 2 really important things that you can do.
And the Adelaide Central Market are currently recruiting for a marketing and comms manager, yes? Plug away.
Yes, it's my time. Yes, we are recruiting for our marketing and communication manager. It's a senior position, full-time, permanent. It's an amazing time to join the market because of the market expansion, and that person will really be a leading voice in shaping what the future market will look like, and shaping the marketing campaign prior to the launch. So great time to join the team. We have a small but very agile team, very passionate, in a great environment, and fantastic launch options.
Amazing. And don't start researching that on Seek if your boss is in the room either. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.